this character is my favorite character. Why? Because this character right here, DaVinci Poo, was the one that birthed all my characters that I brought after that, right? So DaVinci Poo, before it was even known, which I add the Poo, right? Just known as Da Vinci or the Cam Dog. Well, that character, this character, was modeled after my late Cam Chancellor. So I had an American bully, his name was Cam Chancellor, and I was inspired to create a character off of what I was doing. And I found it only right to create a character out of something that I deeply enjoyed and I was very fond over, which were dogs. Specifically, my American bullies, which I grew up always enjoying and just loving pit bulls. I love the dog, I love the breed, and just loved everything about that breed of dog. And so when I found out about dog shows, you know, I would grow up watching the Eukanuba dog shows, and I was always like, man, it would be cool if I seen pit bulls in the dog show, which I eventually seen. It wasn't a whole lot, but they weren't called pit bulls. Obviously, there's variations or breed standards, you know, like the American Staffordshire Terrier, the I want to say English Staffordshire Terrier, the American Pit Bull. But you know, in Eukanuba, I believe that they were called American Staffordshire Terriers, which are different from the American Pit Bull, you know, as in regards to like show and what the American Pit Bulls were or were bred to do, which, you know, became controversial over time or before time as to what the American Pit Bull Terrier were being used for. However, so I'm bringing all this up because this is what has led me to creating my DaVinci Poo character. Is there's a whole history behind it that consists of my life observation or experiences that I've had over my course of time that just piled on each other, or this is the path that I was led down to that birth of that character. And so during that moment, I had my dogs, my American bullies, and I was attending dog shows up and down throughout California, mainly here in the Valley. And I wanted something that was unique to what I was doing. However, what really sparked that interest was that I was into graphic design. About some time before I reached that point, I was learning graphic design. And that really sparked the interest because of what revolved around the dog show community, which was there was dogs who were becoming champions. However, you didn't know who they were. And for a lot, it was about the hype, the exposure of the dog. See, you just didn't want a dog to be a champion. You want your dog to have exposure along with the title. That way people know who you are, they know the dog, and you know the name travels a long way. There was a saying, or there's a saying that I picked up on, which was the male, the sire, the stud makes your name. And for the sake, you know, it's the B word. However, the female, the dam, makes your yard. And so you wanted to establish your name within your community, whether it be your dog or your kennel. You know, it was very important to have a name established and to put your name out there and get your name recognized. That way it clicks to people what's going on, who you are, and your reputation is preceding you. However, you know, there was dogs that didn't necessarily have the title at the moment, but they had the name because of the exposure, the marketing, the advertising, the promotion that was going in to, you know, behind that dog, that was pushing that dog. And it did help to have, the title and the name, there were dogs who had the title and the name, and that just blew them up. So I was into learning that, practicing that philosophy into what I was doing. But while I was doing that, I was stepping outside of the bully community, of the American bully community, and learning and taking it in from other sources that revolved around the marketing, promotion, and advertising, and that entailed in the graphic design. And so with that was that, what was it, right? Because we could sit there and say it's psychological, or the repetition of like commercials. Oh, they're inspiring, they're putting it in our head that we should buy this candy bar, or we should go make this purchase, It's the commercials, it's the why though? What is so good about having a product and you have 15 similar products, but you're gonna choose that one? Why does it stand out? What is it about that product that is standing out to you, right? And so that's when I started looking at it, was, well, I'm not going to sit there and say that I'm influenced, or I've been influenced, or I could be influenced. However, what is it about it? Is it because there's other people that's gravitating towards that? Or is it the color that I'm seeing? Or is it the logo, right? There's logos out there that we can identify, and that was another thing, was we can now identify logos without even seeing their name. And so that stood out to me as well, was like, okay, how can I incorporate that, right? What is it? It's a silhouette. So that was my thing. Okay, if you take away the color, what do you have? A silhouette. So you mean to tell me that we can identify these shapes with the name, with the brand, and with the story, and we're gonna choose that? All right, so I need to create a silhouette. What is it about it? All right, what's standing the test of time? Okay, now I'm starting to look at cartoons, because it's like, well, there are some things that stood out to me, and it's like, dang, like I don't even necessarily have to be involved in such to pick that up, right? And so this one made me start looking at other things, and there's a whole lot that went into it. However, I'm looking at these things, and this is what I started incorporating into what I started doing, or the birth of my character, which was the characters that stood the test of time, right? Snoopy. I'm gonna start name dropping. But that character is like, I wasn't too much deep into the Peanuts like that. However, there's characters that stood out, and I knew the names. And I really don't watch the shows like that, right? Or there's some things that associate with the feminine. However, I'm a male, and I should have no reason to be gravitating towards that, such as Hello Kitty, right? I mean, now I appreciate it for what it is after what I learned. But me being who I was like, I never really cared for Hello Kitty as much as the character, because that was associated with being with the girls, the women, the feminine side. Not so much as the males, at least from my perspective. However, I came across and watched some documentaries, and I was like, I'm gonna watch these documentaries, because you can find knowledge in everything. If that is what you're seeking, is knowledge, you're gonna find knowledge in everything that you do, everything that you experience. And so I watched a documentary on Hello Kitty, along with Coca-Cola, and I believe Nike. I like watching documentaries during that time of learning how these brands and companies and philosophies, philosophy was another big thing, but that would get to another, that was probably for another story. Philosophy is it is very crucial. It's a crucial element into your brand, or what, at least for me, what I do and how I see life and whatnot. The biggest philosophies that you could find is in the Bible, point blank, period. There's a lot, but it's not just philosophy. So just had to drop that in there. I want to say peace be to Jesus Christ. Thank you. But you got to put more respect on his name. However, After watching Hello Kitty, a documentary on Hello Kitty, I was like, wow, sensational. You know, I learned so much and I took so much from it. And also, don't let me forget about Disney, right? There's a lot that went on to there. Watch their documentaries too. But it's like when you watch these things, it's like, dang, like I need to do something like that. Why can't I do something like that, right? You know what? I'm going to do something like that. And it's like dogs, the bullies, the pit bulls have always been a part of me. Um, shoot, bit by a pit bull at an early age. So that is a part of me. You know what I'm saying? And so me, it was like I'm destined for this. I'm destined for the dogs. I love the bullies. I love the pit bulls. And man, if there's anything in life that I'm gonna be destined for, it is this. Now, however, I was like, you know what? This is what I'm doing, and I want to create a character out this. It would be tight if I could do a bully character after my own dogs, you know. And I was in limbo or whatever you want to call it, of doing my own thing. You know, there's a story behind that. Just doing my own thing, and I was gonna stand out. I was gonna stand out. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna shoot. So after being the inspired and learning about kawaii and the concept about that, you know, and that's a whole thing as to that'll be another subject or topic or video. Dang, I'm already at 11 minutes. Oh my goodness. Oh man, that's a lot. But learning kawaii and incorporating that, and along with the unorthodox, and I want to say it's unorthodox because it's not perfect, of Snoopy, and then learning the American style, which I call Disney the American style, right? Because to me that's an American style compared to, you know, the Japanese style of kawaii and the old American style, or you know, the peanut style, you know, the illustrator, different illustrative styles. And I was like, all right, now I'm gonna incorporate my style too with the technology that I do have on hand, which was my laptop and you know, mouse, which I like to say, because I didn't have the pen yet. I didn't have the pen or the pad to help me draw that. So with the mouse, I was like, you know, that's why it's all like jaggedy and stuff. But that's part of the philosophy, you know. It ain't gotta be perfect. It's not perfect. However, like that's just the human element to it, you know. Just like Snoopy. Snoopy's not a perfect, you know, geo-dimensional, or I don't have the shapes. It's not a perfect shape. It's a doodle, but it works, you know. And then, you know, the big head, little body, the kawaii. And now, like I said, that could go further into it and that birth of that as to why we like those types of things, or, you know, why is it common in the feminine side of the human element. And so I had took some pictures, you know, I was into photography. I took some pictures of my dogs a while back, and you know, that was another reason as to, you know, the marketing and promotion was getting some good pictures. Not so much as doing the Photoshop editing. I know there's people out there Photoshop editing their dogs. However, you know, just take some good pictures, you know, the angles. You get some angles on your dogs, and you don't need no editing or Photoshop like that, you know, no like distortion or warping of the dog. Angles, you know, it's not like you're catfishing, but you know, you get some good angles, you know, you get them good angles. We all got a good side, you know what I'm saying? Nah, but you get that, and it comes in. So after watching that, I was inspired to get to work, and it was the longest hours to do that, but I was able to get it done in a sitting with the you know, using Photoshop and the mouse, and just using the tools that I had available with the picture, you know, with the opacity turned down, and just do it. It was very hard, it was very difficult, and it was stressful. And the original drawing and the original color is not what I have today. I changed it within like the last few hours of saying this is the publish because I also followed that philosophy. You know, Snoopy was on four legs before we got to know Snoopy today, which was bipedal character. You know, and that just comes with having that confidence, or that okay, I'm gonna change it, even though this is my first try, or this is my try and I enjoy it. I gotta make these changes to make it look right. So, you know, I fixed the head a little, I changed the color, and, you know, I got what I got today, and I kept it hidden. I said, that's it, put my stamp on it, and I said, I do not know what I'm gonna do with this. And I just kept it. It was too good to put out there right away. So I kept it for several years before it got put out there. And I want to say this was around 2017, 2018 that I created my DaVinci Poo character. And so stay tuned. There's a lot more that I would like to share and talk about in regards to this character and all the other characters that I currently have that on my journey over the past, I want to say, decade of doing this, because even though that was my first character, that was not my first logo. And I was making logos, or you know, my amateur logos, my amateur designs, that really got me into what I'm doing. And there was a lot more of education and learning knowledge, learning experiences that I had before that led up to having that character, and then all the way to present day now, and as to why I decide to drop these videos to share. So stay tuned. And you already know what it do, little poo-poos.